In my career, I've worked with some of the best writers in the world on developing great characters. And over that time, I've learned a few things that have informed my personal philosophy on what makes a character believable, someone that a reader will want to stick with for hundreds of pages. And today, I want to share 6 things with you that you can do to make your characters feel real to your reader. When I was in college, my creative writing professor taught me this principle that I now call the RAC rule. RAC stands for relatable, active, and competent. A believable character will almost always exhibit 2 of these 3 qualities, but never all 3. Believable characters are relatable characters. So if we want to make our characters relatable, we have to ask ourselves, what do readers relate to? There are lots of answers here. A character's personality, their profession, their language, how they speak, the vocabulary that they use, do they use slang, do they swear, etc. Readers relate to the beliefs that our characters hold, to their backstory and the events that shape their lives. Human connection is founded in what we have in common, and readers look for those commonalities in characters to relate to them. So when you are trying to write a relatable character, always keep in mind how you want your readers to connect with your characters. Believable characters are active. Active characters have motives and goals that they work towards. They make progress towards those goals throughout the whole novel, even if they are set back by the actions of others or unfortunate circumstances. Good characters are always active. It's important to note that active doesn't always mean reactive. Your characters shouldn't only be reacting to the actions of others, because if we rely too much on making our characters only react to the things happening around them, we won't ever see them working towards their motives or their goals. Now, this doesn't mean that characters shouldn't react. They can and they should, but the reaction should be grounded in their motives, not merely an opposition to a negative event. Otherwise, your characters will feel passive, as if the story is happening to them, rather than being the main reason for the story. Believable characters are competent. They're good at what they do, and it shows. They're confident in their abilities. This doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes, but when they do, they don't let those mistakes keep them down, and they keep up that confidence. Readers enjoy characters who excel in a specific field or practice, or are learning to become great at it. Characters like Tony Stark, or Luke Skywalker, Bones, Sherlock Holmes, etc. If you focus on what your character excels at or is learning to excel at, you immediately tap into that vein that all readers are looking for, which is living vicariously through fiction. Remember that humans have flaws, so your characters should have flaws as well. They should make mistakes, they should stumble and fail. We as humans crave to see how others react in the face of adversity because we want to see them overcome that struggle. Seeing characters overcome hurdles that seem similar to what we face in life makes us believe that we can too. So give your character 2 qualities in the RAC rule. Make them relatable and active, or active and competent. But whichever one you choose to omit, don't simply leave it out of your character altogether. Use that as a basis point for your character's major flaws. So if you're not using relatability as a quality, then lean hard into unrelatability. Make your character competent, active, and highly unlikable. And you'll see just how many people start telling you how much they love that character. Next, what makes a character? Once you understand how your character fits into the RAC rule, your job is to make that character come to life on the page. And the way that we do this is by immersing the reader in all of the things that makes this character a person. And in order to do that, you have to be aware of every detail that makes up your character. So what makes a character a person? This isn't an exhaustive list, but think about things like, what is the character's family like? What's their religion? What language do they speak? And what type of society and government do they live in? Are they in school, or do they have a mentor? What's the surrounding geography and the climate, and how do those impact who this person is? What's your character's profession? What do they enjoy? What are their favorite things? Do they have a love interest? Do they have enemies? What music do they enjoy? What stories do they listen to? What was their upbringing like? And what are the ghosts in their closet? What is their backstory? What emotions do they feel strongly, or do they lack the ability to feel any emotion at all? Have they ever experienced grief, pain, and loss, and how does that look like in their life? All of these things and more make up who your character is, and when you plot out your book, these things will all play a part in how your characters move through the story. So your job is to think about what makes your characters unique, and then use your own unique voice to bring them to life on the page. So when you're writing the small details in your story, ask yourself, how are this character's traits impacting the current scene? How are they impacting what the characters are doing? And how are they impacting what the character is planning next? The next is language and voice. In a large cast of characters, it's often hard to distinguish who is who. How do we make all of these characters sound different from each other? We just walked through a list of things that make characters unique, but one of the best ways to set your characters apart from each other in the narrative is with the language that they use. We all grew up in different places and in different times. Language changes from place to place and from time to time. Cultures around the world speak hundreds of different languages. And even within a single language, dialect and vocabulary can vary widely. So, for example, characters who are great friends might use a lot of the same vocabulary, but the homes and communities in which they were raised will dictate more about their language than anything else. So, as you're writing your characters, think about the words that they use. Be deliberate, especially as you write their dialogue. What words do they say that sets them apart from everyone else in the scene? One thing that I like to advise all of the authors that I work with is to go outside and look at something, whether that's a tree or a park bench or a road or a leaf or an animal, anything that you can see, and write a single sentence about that one thing. Then choose a few of the characters from your story and try to write that same sentence as if that character were writing that sentence, as if that character were observing that object, and see what different words you use and the different ways you would describe that individual thing. Once you do that, you start getting into the heads of your characters, and you can start seeing just how to separate those characters on the page by the words that they use. The next is backstory. Every believable character has a backstory. Backstories establish so much of what we talked about earlier with home life, family, school, training, religion, language, and more. Most importantly, backstories establish character motive. The reason your character is the way they are right now is because of the things that happened in the past. So develop that past for each and every one of your characters, no matter how much page time they get. If you want them all to stand out and feel believable, give them all individual and unique backstories. Even if this backstory never makes it into the book, you as the writer need to know your characters inside and out in order for them to shine on the page. The next is flaws. Earlier, we talked about character flaws and using the RAC rule to help you define what your characters are deficient at. This is a great first step, but flaws shouldn't simply exist in isolation. Flaws are a mechanism by which we experience ourselves through literature. Flaws are obstacles that characters face, which not only impact their own choices, but the choices of all of the other characters around them. As soon as you can start making your characters' flaws impact the way the rest of your characters interact, you'll know that you are on the right track. The next step from there is understanding how your characters' flaws will cause major problems for other characters in your story. See, readers enjoy experiencing struggle in fiction. Like I said before, watching characters overcome huge obstacles gives us hope that we can too. And as flaws are obstacles, you should treat them as such and give your characters enough self-awareness to know how those flaws are impacting those around them. The next step from there is figuring out if your character will face that flaw head on or shrink in the face of the challenge. And finally, the last thing is creating a character sketch. We've talked about a lot of things already with the RAC rule, the elements of a great character, language, voice, backstories, flaws. How do we keep all of this straight? My favorite way to do this is by creating character sketches. Some people call this a character outline or a character Bible. Whatever you want to call it, it's incredibly helpful for people like me who need to have everything written down in an easily accessible file for reference while writing. A character sketch is a document that keeps all of these details in a single place. If you need a starting point, you can simply Google character sketch template and you'll find a bunch of different examples of what this looks like. There are great word processing softwares out there like Scrivener and Campfire Writing also that allow you to create character sketches within the program itself. And you can keep track of all of your characters and their backstories and details in a single place. Every time I work with an author on a manuscript, I always advise that they start making character sketches for every single character in the manuscript if they haven't already. So I advise you to do the same thing. Go make character sketches. This should give you a good starting point for all of your characters. Remember, relatable, active, competent. Choose two of these and use the other as a basis for the character's flaw. Know every detail about your character, from their family life to their religion to the color of their favorite blanket as a child. Be deliberate with your language and use unique vocabulary between your characters. Build strong backstories that lead to motives and flaws, and keep all of these details in a character sketch so that you can reference them whenever you need to during a writing session. I hope that this has helped you learn something new about creating believable characters, and I hope you start using these tips in your writing. I promise that if you do, you will start crafting characters like a pro in no time, and readers will not be able to get enough.